But I wanted to talk about some pretty cool wins that I had this morning. So I was running a few minutes behind because my approach for the month of May is to really step on the gas as it relates to um, building our business,
Recording in progress.
and doing the things necessary as it relates to where the market is going and how to take advantage of it. No excuses. And so one of the things that I have suggested to folks, if it's possible, is to try to make one new friend every single day. Now, if you are working from home, if you're working from home, or you have other gigs going on that doesn't really allow you to interact with the public, you still have to get it done. You just got to figure out a way to get it done around what it is that you're doing at the present time. So, prime example is early this morning. I had to drop my car off to get clean because if you know anything about Georgia, pollen is insane here. And so I was in the gym. I saw a guy who had a Houston Astros sweater. And because I'm a real estate agent, it's typically one of the things that used to come out within the first 10 seconds of me interacting with a person. And I realized, I said, okay, I don't want to turn off the individual that I'm talking to, and they're only thinking that I'm only talking to them because I'm a real estate agent. So my approach has changed now in the sense that, again, the goal is to make one new friend per day. That one new friend can either be related to my spiritual growth, my health, wellness, and or real estate. So when I saw the gentleman with the Houston Astros sweater on this morning, I simply approached him and I said, hey, are you from Houston? And he kind of looked me up and down like, yeah. And I was like, I'm from Houston too. And so immediately when I mentioned that I was from Houston too, I literally felt his guard dropping and he was like, oh, okay, what's up, man? And so we talked a little bit about Houston. I talked about how long I've lived here in Georgia. And he mentioned the fact that he just moved a year ago. So what I decided to do in that moment was, tell him, hey, man, you've got one new person here that at least here in the gym that's from Houston as well. And, I moved out here. I just kind of told a little bit of my spiel. And then I mentioned, of course, in that same why I moved out here, that I'm a real estate professional. And he's like, okay, cool, cool. And again, didn't mention anything of it. I didn't bring up, if you're interested in buying and selling and all that jazz. I didn't get into all that because, again, that can kind of be expected as soon as you mention that you are a real estate professional. I don't know about anyone here's experience with other real estate professionals, but you can they just find a way to bring it up within a few moments and kind of go right in for the kill. And so again, using the dating analogy as always, I'm all about just kind of putting it out there that, this is one aspect of what I do, but centering the conversation on them. And I learned this, ironically enough, from my family and I's recent trip to Disney World, because when we checked into our resort, a young lady approached us and she worked with Disney, and she pointed out to my wife, she said, oh, I love let's just say it was her bag that she had. And it was a little weird because from that point, she just got to talking about, well, where'd you buy it from? My wife mentioned she got it from Ross. I didn't know they don't have Rosses everywhere in the United States. And so in Florida, apparently they don't have Rosses, but she just really honed in on that one thing my wife was wearing and, just complimented it. So I literally see that was more than likely a training tactic that Disney teaches their employees to find one thing about that person and use that one thing as the bridge to approach them, so that it's not weird. It may be weird for you still. But you at least have something to approach them about. So I would suggest to you all, anyone here, if you are really wanting to let people know that you are a real estate professional, literally find one person and find something about that one person. If it's a purse they're wearing, if it's their shoes. I'm a sneakerhead, so I'm always complimenting folks on their sneakers. And then I use that as the bridge to introduce myself and things of that nature. But at least I started the conversation with some common ground. Again, with the gentleman mentioning that I'm from Houston. I love the Astros. I'm wearing my Atlanta Braves shirt right now, but but I'm always going to be H Town till I die. That's my mindset. So again, that turned into a contact that I saved on my phone. I made one friend. I told him I did real estate. So in the coming days, I'm going to find some way, again, through our conversations, now that I've made a gym friend, to bring up, that if it's okay with him, I'd like to just send him some information, because he mentioned to me that he'd been here in Georgia for 1 year. So that tells me more than likely he's probably renting, because if he's moved within a year or so, depending on the market and depending on the reason that he moved, he may have decided to rent and eventually we'll be looking for a home. I don't know that, but I didn't want to try to find that out on the initial conversation. So now I'm going to use that as my next bridge to introduce myself as a real estate business professional. Anybody have any thoughts on that, or what's your what's your opinion on that strategy as far as meeting, how to meet people without feeling weird about it?
I would say I personally like that
Okay.
strategy. It doesn't come on too strong,
Right.
and it really lets I'd say, like, let the relationship be a little bit more fluid rather than forced.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
I think it's a great strategy. It definitely jives more with the kind of approach that I would prefer to take.
Right.
I just sometimes I get stuck, like, so after you find that one thing about the person and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, thank you." And then it's like, "Okay, what
Yeah.
next?"
Well, I would say, where'd you buy it from? If it's a purse or it's a shirt or it's some shoes, where'd you get those shoes from? Oh, I got it from TJ Maxx. Oh my God, I love TJ Maxx. I get to sounding like a old woman sometimes when I'm complimenting sneakers. I'm like, oh man, I love those shoes, things of that nature. But you can, it'll always, especially if they seem like they're conversational, because I'm an energy guy. So if the before I even approach that person, I do kind of stalk them for about 10 seconds to say, okay, does this person look like they can be approached? And sometimes I just go, yeah. And that's what life is all about, because as I mentioned, I wouldn't have known that he'd only been in Georgia for 1 year if I didn't tell my story about why I moved to Atlanta, and or whatever the case is. And so maybe if it's clothing, you could say, well, I'm looking for some clothes for spring, so I really like that shirt. So where'd you get that from? And then just kind of build from there. And they may ask you questions, and even if it doesn't go beyond that, at least you've worked that muscle to say, okay, I approached somebody, and I found that one thing about them, and it didn't turn into anything. It's okay, but I'm going to do it again, and then apparently, eventually, it's going to happen. So, good
Yeah,
stuff.
I think at the open house